Welcome to the greatest place in the world, my doghouse. These are my opinions on Karen Read. Yes, everybody's tired of hearing about it, but I'm going to give my opinion. And believe me, this has nothing to do with either side. Has to do with what I've seen through the media and certain people talking. And let me start out right off the bat. I am not against the police. I am for the police as far as what they do. The last 6 years before I retired, I worked with a guy. He was a former police officer, but then he got into fire extinguishers and that, and had a better job in California. And when he come back, he was doing post office and the fire extinguishers. His son retired as a police officer, and I worked for him after his dad had passed. I drove around in a vehicle doing fire extinguishers and suppression system with this guy's father-in-law, our son-in-law, which was a retired police officer. I worked at another job, security, was retired, our police officers. So I've worked around police officers. I'm not putting down police officers of any sort. This has to do with the situation at hand. One of the things, if I'm on that jury, here's my thought. See, all these experts you hear on here all the time are on that case, kind of above the normal people in how they think and why they think the way they do. They get on there, the lawyers and the big column writers and all that. They think everybody is supposed to have their point of view and look at it through their lens, not the common man's lens at all. And this is part of the problem that happens in our society. In this case, all these people were out there looking. You're supposed to look through their lens, not yours. And it has paid off for them money wise, but logically, not so much. Here's what things, if I was a juror, I would have found her not guilty in either case. Some of the things why. How does a snowplow driver plow snow and don't see somebody that's laying on the road or in the grass? That would be impossible. The silhouette of that body would still be there, even if it was covered. And nobody in a snowplow truck would miss that. That's one thing, but they looked over that big time. But as a juror, you're going to look at that. And you really are. You're going to say, why didn't he see that? And the thing with the dog, the timing of the dog, come on. And some evidence they want to put in, the judge didn't lent them. You wouldn't know that as a juror, but that was a problem too. Other things you've seen in there is, how is there not even any tiny pieces of glass on his sweatshirt or jacket, whatever that was he had on? Why wasn't there? That's another thing you would have looked at. Remember, I'm talking common sense, not the people that think we should think like them because they have a lot of money and their knowledge is better than yours. It's a shame that that part happened too. If you go back and look at some of the interviews and what they were saying, you'll see that come out. But okay, the glass. The dog comes up missing close to everything. Uh, when they went to the phone, it still could have very well been in the house. It was not, definitely not just outside. There was a big question there, and as a juror, you're going to go, is that part undoubtedly he was not in there, or was there enough doubt there that he was out? That's another question you'd have as a jurist, not as a high and mighty thinking they know everything person. You really think about that. That would be a question on most people's minds as a jurist. And obviously, when you have questionable police officers, especially in the first one, makes you wonder. Another thing that would make me wonder, just the second one alone, is everybody has ring cams around that area in that cul-de-sac. Nobody has that footage. And at Albert's house, that certain section don't exist. That's another deal you have to look at. Common sense stuff is what I guess I'm really getting at. You really have to question that. Set. Stupid phone. But some of this stuff was just way out there, and what you heard as a jurist, even then it was questionable. Now, if you had questions, say, well, she might have. What? It has to be beyond a reasonable doubt. And some of the stuff that was coming up would put it, in my opinion, as reasonable doubt. And you only had one conviction if that was the case. It's not who's popular, who's not popular. Is that person innocent or guilty? And that's what you're there for. Maybe you didn't like her. Maybe she come off wrong to you if you're a jurist. That don't matter. Did she or did she not? That's the main thing. But when you look at all the ends and pieces these people put together, and the one guy they didn't even call the second time, the former police officer, there's a reason for that. The jury didn't hear that, but his name come up a lot. But there was so much question put into the jurist's head. They had no other choice but that plea of not guilty. And I think it was the right plea. Don't get me wrong, and part of the problem, not as a jurist, just as common sense here. Why in the hell, if she did do it, and I don't believe she did, but just for the sake of argument, you said she did, and she did. And there is so much evidence you were piling on stuff that didn't exist. What makes you think that will help your case and not hurt your case? Because let's look at it overall picture here. The judge was sort of related somehow or another, calling her Aunt Bev or people, a journalist. And don't you think she wouldn't be trying to get on for a third time if it would have been a hung jury? Because at the end, you realize that's exactly what she's trying to do, is confuse the jurist, as they did in the first trial. Just by her not going in right off the bat and saying you can do this or you can do that. That was planned, that was designed, and that was a backup. Because you better believe she would have did everything possible to get on the third one. Why would you do that? And why would people be doing this if she was not innocent? Why would you not went to the juries and said you could do this and that? It's an interesting concept overall, but if she did do it, they enhance things to make it look bad and good for her, which would make no sense to me. That's why I don't think that happened, and why I think she was innocent and is innocent. That town is a little bit different. Probably a lot of good people there, but and I guarantee you there's nepotism in small towns. I grew up, well, I grew up on a ranch, so I wasn't in town, but a small area. You better believe there's nepotism, and part of the people you put on the council or the commission or whatever you got are liable to be related. And that's just the way that goes because it's small. And you better believe some of them police officers were sticking together. Was it right? No. They shouldn't have been doing that. Why would you not, as a police officer, and supposedly you're a police officer 24/7, why was you not outside immediately? Don't give me you were drunk or you were tired or you didn't hear that. You knew this was going on. Everybody there should have been out there. Just as a police officer, let alone if you knew what was going on. And a matter of fact, it would have made you guys look a lot better. Get up and panic and go, oh my God, what happened here? But when you did not go out of the house and nobody else really cared, that's a red flag. It really is. To put a person through this is unreal. And it really is. It's a shame that she had to go through this like she did. And the other day I was talking to my wife. I said, I could see him not guilty on the 2 and the lesser DUI charge, which is how it come out. But these guys put themselves in a hole, whether they were right or wrong, with the extra stuff they did. And everybody sees it was corrupt there. And nobody cared about who really unalived somebody. They just found somebody to pin it on, and they were going to do it. And at least around here, Lori Daybell and Chad Daybell, their place where their kids were found on their property, probably an hour or a little less away from where I'm at. And they did everything possible to find it. And they didn't make up evidence, they went for it. And that's the way it should have been. In the Karen Reed case, it should have been held that way. They didn't find them 2 kids because of professionalism of Chad. Now, yeah, we're not that always that great around here either. And this has nothing to do with the guy I spent about 5 years riding around with in a doing fire extinguishers. There was a case, and I didn't know any of these at the time, that a person went to jail for unaliving somebody. I don't know how many years later, probably close to 20. Maybe not that, but it was close to that. Found out this person that was unalive, the DNA made him guilty, not the guy in prison. So they wound up letting him out. And this is a true story. They let him out, And the city of Idaho Falls had to pay money because they had him incarcerated when they shouldn't have. Well, there was rumors going around, and I knew some of the friends, and rumors are rumors, that he was into drugs, and I ain't saying he was, people. I would never accuse him or anybody else of being into drugs, but this was the rumors going around, and you can take them for just that, rumors. But it was ironic because after he got the money, and I don't know how long after, because that wasn't my business, and I never had an opinion one way or other or expressed it. But he went to Vegas, and an ex wrestler unalived him. Supposedly, he was giving rugs to his stepdaughter, or trying to get her to take some. And he got carried away and unalived him. Which maybe the drugs had something to do with way back then. I have no idea. This is just what occurred. I'm not making nothing up, and I'm not accusing anybody anything here. And the guy I drove around, he was retired then, and this had happened years and years before. But he's the one that gave the lie detector test, and I 100% guarantee you, in his case, it wasn't a conspiracy. He really was convinced of what he was saying. The other two I have no clue about. So sometimes you can have, and the only reason I'm bringing this up, and I'm not saying all the police officers there, but sometimes you can convince yourself so much, and you know you're right, or in your heart you're right, and you don't see what's really there all the time. And I bet you some of them police officers felt 100% Karen Read was guilty, because everybody wasn't involved. It was just a select few was involved, which in most cases, like Karen Reed's, that's what you do. But you don't involve everybody. You may hear about it if you're a police officer. The guy that his son was a police officer, he was on the force at that time, but, and this is a big but, he had zero to do with it. He wasn't informed of nothing. He was just a patrolman, and that was it. So yeah, you can have an opinion, and you're convinced of that opinion, and it turns out still wrong. And I'm sure, like I said, some of these people in the Karen Read deal exactly felt that way. And yeah, I mean, things happen when you have an opinion. Sometimes you have good opinions and bad opinions, but it don't change what the facts are. In the Karen Read, there was too much other crap going on that it couldn't have been legit. There was no way this was a legit deal. From the judge to the prosecutors to anybody, even to a point, a couple of people that they went after because they were standing up for Karen Read, trying to get the news out and all that, like Turtle Boy and all that. And he was very informative of what was going on. And they've tried and still trying to get him on other charges, all because he was bringing this out. I have no doubt in my mind that that is why they're going after him on this Karen Read deal. No, I don't like his mouth of using certain words all the time, but he does. And it has nothing to do with him not being right, because he was right. And he worked hard to get things done. And no, he don't know me from Adam. I've listened to his program here and there, but that's it. But I still will stick up for him for what he did to get this thing going. And what I mean by going is getting the truth out and let the truth be out. He can't be out there and advertise to everybody. It's kind of like a trickle down theory. You start up here and you can more and more people, and it spreads out and spreads out, and that's the way it should be. But people like that really helped out. It was the people involved that helped her so much. And no, I don't know Karen Reed. I'm not claiming to be. And I'm definitely not no expert on this stuff. I'm just saying what was out there. You know, we got to come together at times. And this was one time they needed to come together, and they did. Isn't it nice that people are willing to stand up for what is right? And you better, and I feel sorry for O'Keefe's family. You know, that's tragic, sickening, and disgusting. They've had to live through it twice, and maybe a third time, and with no answers. I tell you what, I feel sorry for them. No, I don't believe Karen Reed did anything to him, but somebody did. It's about time somebody stood up and found out and said what really went on. You're putting a family through hell that don't need to go through hell. And that's what's happening. John O'Keefe's family does not deserve this. And like I said, they may think she did it, but I don't. But they do deserve an answer from who did do it. It won't bring their son back, but I tell you what, it was the right thing to do if they finally figure it out. But they were so gung-ho on pinning it all on one person. The evidence was just screwy. I don't care what the experts say when you really look at common sense. See, some of these experts don't use common sense. They just use their idea of being an expert and throw out common sense. I'm sorry, engineers do the same thing, but it's good that they inform you and you get an idea of what's going on, but you don't have to believe their outcome because they're trying to get you to think like they do, not what you see. You need to go with what you see, not just then, or just not for 5 minutes, the overall picture. And when you look at the overall picture, you'll see Karen Reed is innocent. There's no doubt. Does that mean the police officers and that are going to land up on her? No way in hell are they going to. They'll find every excuse. Not all of them, the bad ones. Okay, get that straight. I do back the blue, but I don't back the bad ones. But some of those people close to the law enforcement officers involved, they will do things to try to bring it forward that she does something wrong. And she can better believe there are going to be people out there to do that. They're more worried about her than the person that really did it. Because she is there. Sometimes the problem is it's really hard to comprehend if you don't have a person right there to pin it on. If you have a person there you can pin it on, you're going to, because that person you don't see in the back of your mind at times, and this is not everybody, but that person in the back of your mind you can't see, and you see this other person you can see, guess who you're going to focus on automatically? We're human. We're going to focus on what we see. What may have been may not be there. You don't want to comprehend that because you see this. Even in our regular lives, we do that all the time. Don't make it right, it means that's what we do. But Karen Reed deserves better. Her family went through a lot. John O'Keefe's family goes through a lot. And I hope them the best in the world. I really do. We need to stand up for what is right, not what somebody may think because they screwed up and didn't want to admit they did wrong. As I think some other people did, not Karen Reed, the others done. But see, when greed, ego, and all that are number one in your life, you're going to do things like this. You care less about other people. You care less about a human being. And it wasn't, things that come out what may happen in the house. I mean, as far as their lives go, I care less. That was their business, what they did in the house. Taking a life, that's more than their business. I don't care if they was having one person a couple of times. I shouldn't say one. And this is not my opinion. This is what come out. Oh, some people said they was having swinger parties or whatever. Guess what? That's their business. That doesn't mean you unalive somebody. If they did it in there, yeah, then it's your business. But you have to go back. Why did the police officers not go outside? If they're police officers 24/7, they should have been outside. And another thing that happened, all these people drove home drunk. Every one of them that was driving was drunk. But I guess that was okay. They're an exception to the law in this case. But I'm so glad it turned out the way it did. I'm happy it turned out the way it did. I'm happy how the bill outcome has turned out. Just from a perspective, because we're not city. Our cities are spread out. And they're not very big. Idaho Falls is where I live, but the rest are smaller, going up towards where their house was. So you hear things all the time. Some probably rumors, some is true. But there was enough there evidence that they did a good job on it. And that's good. That's what should happen. And yes, I really live that close to where they were at. An hour from here, most people said that's quite a ways. Not out where I live, it ain't. But we all gotta stick together on many, many things in our lives. And one of them is to make sure it's truth. If you're going to try to pin something on somebody that didn't do it, you are in the wrong. And sometimes it takes a while to figure it out. But in the case of Karen Reed, they had a victim right there. It didn't matter whether she did or she did not. It was physically there. And the people that done it knew they could go after her and make her the one that's the criminal. Does it in God's eye that don't change nothing. The person that did it is still the criminal. And one day will be punished for it. And that's the way it should be. But Karen Reed, it was so good to see that though. Her getting a not guilty verdict. See, in this country, sometimes we have a tendency to question our jury system and our judges and all that. You had a judge there that shouldn't even been on that case, but the jury seen it and overruled the way the judge was trying to push it. They did the right thing. The judge made it hard for them, but they still come away with a not guilty verdict. The people did their job. That means she's not guilty. I hope y'all have a great, great day. Enjoy.